deal with the Akali problem, and how do they deal with the Renekton problem?
Well, you see,
and
they
straight
banned them
out the
both.
gate, they're like, we don't want either of these. I expect this last ban to be a potential Elise, or maybe the Lee Sin that Clid has been so favored towards.
And maybe this is really curious as to why SKT took the red side of Summoner's Rift, because you would assume if this was Splice on red side, they'd have to ban Pantheon, they'd have to ban the Qiyana. However, Pantheon not yet banned.
Because I don't know if Splice actually have Pantheon in their champion pool.
Oh, I am heartbroken to see that ban.
I wanted
Truly
it
heartbroken.
so badly. But I think SKT could play with fire here. Maybe one of these games they leave the Pantheon open, because if there is a team that doesn't flex Pantheon, it is Splice. This team is so narrow in its effective active champion pool between multiple positions. It's usually Xerxes, Humanoid, and Kabe that can flex, whereas SKT can play everything in every position.
Yeah, and really interesting that we just saw the Elise hover. Normally people would think about Clid and the Lee Sin, but Elise has been banned against him so much of this tournament and is certainly one of his best pickup. And I love AP junglers on the current patch because it does allow you to have so much more freedom with your solo laners. All of a sudden things like the Jace can be such a high priority just because you have magic damage coming from the jungle position.
Yeah, at least definitely very threatening overall. Just very interested to see the fact that Thresh is taken right off the bat there. Of course, the Xayah already banned, the Kai'Sa already picked up. Gragas going to be the AP jungle answer, and wait to see what Splice want for the last pick before the bans come in.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious about the Thresh. So the two champions that North Garen has really shown have been the Nautilus and the Thresh. And this seems like a clear-cut option that you know that North Garen's going to go towards that Nautilus, unless maybe they have a bizarre pick to try out a strategy. And Nautilus actually has a decent matchup into Thresh.
However, I think this means that maybe a low mobility carry or mage would be the priority here for SKT. We know that Thresh's strength is the ability to be able to drag people around, and I mean, that is certainly one of them.
That is a way to flex on your opponents. Come out with his first Draven of Worlds. Known to play it, but it's going to be exciting all the same. You might see bot lane get completely cracked open here.
And because they decided to go for the blind pick Gangplank, Vizicachi and North Garen have two of the shallowest pools on Splice, so it's about who sacrifices their comfort pick to make sure that one of these guys can grab it. There's the Nautilus ban, and it looks like North Garen was the sacrificial lamb. He will not get one of his comfort picks this champion, and now you have a Draven Thresh kill lane when North Garen is going to be playing on the back foot of whatever champion he's able to grab out of second ban.
Yeah, based on World's habits, Rakan and Leona could come in here, but Leona could probably survive this damage, but there's no way out. So if she goes in, that might still be a cash-in for the Draven. We'll see what else comes through here. We're seeing the Jace ban right there now with the Gangplank in. We know it's going to Chachi. Jace is one of those champs that would abuse the matchup.
And I would like to see the Rakan picked up just because they were mentioning on the test that Splice need to be able to play team fight. They want to see a 5v5 composition coming out. Yes, there is a lot of early game power coming out of the SKT lineup, but it is one of these squishy comps that if you do get caught in the mid game, someone will fall down. And into the Gangplank matchup, you don't necessarily want to run a tank either. So I think this might be a comp that does lack a little bit of engage.
And if they do go for something like the Rakan, another champion that could work is the Alistar. If you see an Elise, Thresh, and Draven, if you ever get wave management down there on SKT, the potential to set up a dive with that Elise is really terrifying. And if you see the Alistar here, that's trying to dissuade SKT from diving them. It's very dangerous to dive that type of champion on top of a Gangplank ultimate if Chachi is post level 6.
Are we going to see Faker LeBlanc is the question. When I see a Syndra ban, I always think that might be the answer right away. Hovering around, Lucian instead. The Jace was banned, the Kayle was banned. Lucian is going to be the top lane marksman pick to knock down a Gangplank.
Yeah, and I would expect it to go top lane as well, just given the fact that it was a flick between a Vladimir back to a Lucian. So it does look like they are reserving counter pick. However, another one of these flexes for SKT. Faker's been playing a ton of marksman in the mid lane in solo queue. Actually playing a little bit more Ezreal than potentially Lucian at this stage, but if there is a good matchup for it, might be able to take that one.
LeBlanc takeaway comes in here, because I think we all have the eyes on it. Faker LeBlanc is one of the strongest champion player synergies we have seen, and when you ban a Syndra, that lets the LeBlanc alarm bells run off at North Garen. He's smiling, he's nodding. There's a good chance if Oliver actually gets locked in.
I mean, yes, he has played it before, but that makes more sense. North Garen will hover Warwick and Volibear every single time for his long-term friends. The Blitzcrank, though, is not something that I expected. Now, North Garen hasn't been the best at this tournament in terms of high execution champions, and you don't have to hit the hook, but I would like him to hit some of them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, we've seen this matchup played in the bottom lane already. I think that it can be Blitzcrank favored. Also, the additional range on Blitzcrank's hook just gave him so many more options in the mid game. You can actually set up a lot of sneaky plays over maybe longer pieces of terrain than suspected. But this is an SKT classic. they are able to fill multiple roles as players, and I think the fact that Faker has been willing to go towards something like Lissandra, despite the fact that he's having quite a good tournament, just shows that they recognize the lack of engage. They needed a safe lane to be able to play through.
It's also just a long school pick into the LeBlanc to deny a lot of the kill pressure there, but kind of backing up and taking a look at the SKT composition, this is a comp that really thrives on 1- and 2-item power spikes. This is a comp that can snowball and tower dive especially well, especially if they ever get priority control over that mid wave and start involving Faker in the side lanes, which he's on Lissandra. You know Faker is going to race out to the side.
And I'm really curious what happens in the bottom lane here, because you talked about the Blitzcrank being able to roam over, but you've got Kai'Sa Blitz having a battle against Draven Thresh. If you leave Kai'Sa alone, she's probably dead under turret. So very curious how the bot lane 2-on-2 plays out, which junglers come down, what that matchup turns into. Best of 5 on the road. Let's get into it. Welcome to Summoner's Rift for the first quarterfinal match of the day. Underdogs afoot, Splice, the third team out of Europe. Congrats for making Worlds. Huge props for getting out of the group. But you're up against maybe the best team in the world in SK Telecom T1, the Juggernauts from South Korea, the LCK champions, 3-time world champions SKT. And we'll see if they can make it to yet another World Semifinal.
And level 1 shenanigans are not going to pay off, and that means that we're going to have a very standard early game. We speak about this a lot, but if SKT do have this team composition that gets rolling at 1 to 2 items, that do want to have a good early game, burden is on Xerxes on the side of Splice to be able to do his thing. This is a jungler that European analysts speak so highly of, because when he does come onto Summoner's Rift, he is able to control the state of the game.
Let's take a quick look at what Xerxes has done. Now, this is a tactic that we've seen appear a couple of times, but he immediately ran, placed down his trinket, reset, and now has a sweeper. And on Gragas, yes, you can go for a full clear and then grab your Predator boots between your top side and bot side jungle, but you could also look for early level 2 ganks by using that sweeper and denying vision. On the other side, though, he's against Clid. Probably the best jungler, in my opinion, at this tournament, and so vital to bridging SKT from early to mid game.
Yeah, I think unless you ask Raz at the tournament, most people have Clid as #1 right now, and I think that I'll be very interested to see how he plays this early game, because we've seen a lot of Elise, and I think Elise into current champions in the jungle is actually quite good. Any 2v2 skirmishes that Elise is able to meet Xerxes on in the early game, I would expect to be pretty Elise favored. So we'll see whether that is going to be the case. I do want to mention this mid lane matchup one more time. I know that you mentioned that this is a lane that we've seen historically. We did stop seeing a little bit because the cooldown went up on Lissandra. Her wave clear was kind of shot a little bit, and her mana costs have become incredibly high. That means that this should be a lane that Humanoid, as long as he is able to trade well, can set up ganks for his jungler with very good wave control.
It feels like Faker is definitely just trying to neutralize and then again race out into those side lanes, whereas the other winning matchup for SKT is Khan versus Chachi up there. We know that Lucian is a great counter pick into Gangplank because of how he can deal with the barrels on his passive double shot, or excuse me, double tap there. And there's also the potential of a possible dive. Gangplanks are punished all the time globally, not necessarily in the LEC, and so they think that they can coast through a lot of these lanes and get to that big bank plank moment. But you can see Clid on the way pings. When you're with an Elise, you need to respect the potential of a dive.
And right now, Chachi's underneath his turret. Pretty close in HP, but Faker's already out of the lane. 3 minutes in, and he's already up to the top side of the map. Trinket Ward has been placed down, does spot it. Sweeper's going to give them a little bit of gold back. But this means, look at these red minions over there. Look at this farm that Chachi is not allowed to get in range for.
And the evolution of SKT since MSI has been fascinating to track. At that tournament, it was actually hold the thought.
First a fight in the bottom side, but they're on top of the lantern. Teddy has to flash. A single auto would kill him, and that won't bring him down. But now it's time for the top side. side, rooted in place. First blood will go through to SKT.
And this just is not something that happens domestically, but it happens globally. Gangplanks will be punished if they don't have the proper support. The setup was Xerxes path from top to bot side because that's where the kill pressure is. They think that Chachi can just throw up the brick wall, but SKT comes slamming through that.
And you can see right now that Chachi is just trying to survive as long as possible, pick up as much farm. He knows he's going down. It was actually the play on the flip side of the map that burnt 3 summoner spells. That Splice wanted to be able to go for. But I want to just throw back to what I was saying. SKT versus G2. Faker freezing the lane on the Azir, and Caps taking over the entirety of the map at MSI. This time it's the opposite. Humanoid is the one freezing. He's trying to get himself a favorable shot and CS lead, and Faker just pieces out of the lane, impacts somewhere else.
I want to point out what the actual end result was, though, because it's 3 summoners burned for Splice to 3 burn for SKT just in the bot lane dive, and Faker spent a full minute top lane, and the mid CS is equal. All that time spent, answer is a kill, and the entire rest of the map has no difference in it.
So what you're telling me is I shouldn't feel good right now.
Nothing net positive actually happened for Splice is the only problem there. And this is what happens when your players are pound for pound better. A situation that should favor you just means you caught up with what the game was.
And the thing is when we talk about the LCK consistency, it does go back to those basic fundamentals of picking their moments. The fact that they have such good back timers, wave control, vision game, they're so disciplined in it means that they don't expose themselves to mistakes and they get to punish yours.
Absolutely. And I think that the difference of this SKT lineup on the international stage is they're also a little bit more willing than we've seen in the past to throw down early. They will take some more of those fights. Their combined kill per minute has certainly shot up. And so far at this Worlds, you can just see they are way more active on Summoner's Rift.
And I think what's really interesting is kind of why that's happened. Spawn, I know that you were theorizing this idea that in the LCK domestically, since there is a higher baseline of fundamentals, teams can recognize when other teams are stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a play like this would happen, right? You can see that Chachi can't get this wave in for himself, so they're going to try and push it in. This most of the time would just be acknowledgement of a freeze. However, it is going to turn into a team fight right now because Clit is here.
Battle is in. Chachi at 200 HP does have flash, but Kuhn goes on to Xerxes, who doesn't have the ability to get out. This Gragas cannot find a way to leave, puts in a bit of damage, but Khan is going to get a second kill of the game.
And a play like this is just so rough to watch because in the LCK, it would have more than one member coming up to try and break that freeze. And SKT get opportunities like this on the international stage to punish inexperienced team opponents.
Not recognizing that they have the stronger 2v2 and the Elise Lucian versus the Gragas Gangplank. So it's finding these holes, and again, you can see what Xerxes wants to do. He wants to just cover Chachi to get this to bounce into the wave, but SKT read it, they match it, they kill them, they continue to snowball.
I mean, and there's just so many things that you would question about this play. The fact that Chachi had teleport available, that he could have come back with items, and now it's not going to stop.
TP's been used, has to burn the flash for the Cocoon. Could have oranged it, I suppose, but didn't want to get chased down by the red buff Lucian.
Okay, you're a Gangplank. You've got no TP. You have no flash. The wave is frozen against you right now. You're just being hard denied, and this Elise is just setting up shop in your lane. That's
300 more health gone.
This is the ultimate feels bad moment.
And the thing is, whilst Clit is up there, I think that Khan at level 6 can nearly kill him 1v1. So this is a nice to have right now for Khan in the top lane. And I think that this is an area of SKT that people thought might be exploitable. Khan on the international stage certainly had some critics out there, but so far is having quite a dominant tournament.
Well, he's getting help, to be clear, right? It is a 3-man dive over at level 3, and then, you know, Clid spending a lot of time up here as well. But hey, if you spend the time and the results come in, I mean, that's a good job. You got the kills. You're winning the game. And
this means now, if you're looking from Splice's lens, what can Xerxes help get back on the map to make it worth the fact that Vizichachi is just in the grave right now? He's trying to dig himself out, which you have to make something crack on this bottom lane or in the mid lane.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what they're looking for. There is a split map happening right now. Humanoid cheating out of the mid lane as well. At minimum, they will be able to take the entirety of this jungle, but looks like they want the dive.
Flash is still gone to the SKT bottom lane, so North are going to look for the hook, and effort kites back in, looking like reinforcements are coming over there as we've got Faker right through the river, spotted now in the vision, though the chain's going to come across. Can they knock down Faker? A lot of damage coming in, puts on the root to buy some extra time with Aftershock. Over the wall, goes with Eve. Humanoid's going to follow in, and Faker will self-ult for the healing, but doesn't buy enough time. Time for round 2. but with Clid here, he will be able to walk away. Ulti burn, nothing else lost.
Yeah, very well played from SKT there. They even preserve Faker's flash, and a lot of that is the fact that Chachi, not level 6, no teleport available, whereas Khan does have it. So they knew if they went past the turret, Khan would be able to teleport down there. Also, just is so strong right now on this Lucian.
But it's just about making... Oh!
Ooh, Flash gets him to safety, but over the wall! Kabe's there, flashes right back out. That was pretty.
You had to get something, because what I was about to say is the fact that Splyce have now taken 2 different runs at SKT and they haven't gotten anything, whereas when SKT make their plays, it is paying off with kills. But they hard forced that one and now trying to force more.
3 versus 2 down here with the true shot, or the ulti on top as well. Can't play without the first one. There we go. Chachi claims the kill credit. Clit's trying to run. They've traded now. The first kill. Second comes in. This is Splyce picking up a lot right now as Khan has to run the cooling on, but can't find the kill. A single one would knock him down, and Splyce are firing back.
Yeah, and finally a breath of fresh air for Splyce. This is what needed to happen. They had to find something, and you can hear Spain behind them, the 6th man of the LEC squads.
That's close.
I actually think that Teddy can guarantee that kill if he rips it back immediately. Because you could see that normally when a Draven player, and this is what I was talking about, Blitzcrank's extended range just means that you are never safe on this portion of the map. Really nicely played from Kobe to also commit to the kill. They certainly needed to get something back in the bottom lane. And this was going to be risky. If they had played a little bit further in the lane, I think the teleport was also slightly late, and that gave Xerxes enough time to be able to pick up the initial kills. But as I mentioned already, Khan is just so strong on this top lane Lucian.
And now we can talk about kind of, now that Splyce have something in the back pocket as well, and SKT aren't just running away with the game, SKT's composition really does thrive in that mid game. The first item, the second item, that's where their powerhouse is, where there are a lot more safe scaling options for Splyce. There is more longevity and win conditions to this composition past the 30-minute mark.
I do, however, want to point out that once again, Khan is still winning more. He teleports down, he gets another kill. He's also 40 CS up in a game where Gangplank only has 40 CS. This is going to be a nightmare of a lane matchup, and you can see that just gives Clid complete control over topside jungle.
This is going to be interesting, though, because Splyce are making it close yet again. We're within 1,000 gold, which is not terrible right now, and that money is really only on the top lane Lucian. I think Khan can certainly push that lead forward, but it does mean that Splyce can feel good about the rest of the map, but the 4-on-4 can look very good for them.
It means that Splyce need to figure out what objective that they're trading. If it's going to be plates on the tower, if it's going to be the Mountain Drake, you can see that they're moving in. They understand they currently control the bot side of the map, and they need to start eating up these objectives to balance out the fact that Herald and Chachi are just getting pushed in.
That route was at the right time. Figures himself up, but does he have a good way out? Owns the flash, but the CC comes in, and the Splyce 2-on-2 take down Faker. Chachi forced to run. He's going to stay alive.
And we knew that Humanoid does have the raw ability to be able to go toe-to-toe with the best players in the world. That was so beautifully played, denying the claw out, taking down Faker. And once again, we just keep mentioning this is a completely split map. There is so much control for Splyce on the bottom side. It's just going to be about how much they lose top lane while all of this is happening.
My questions will always be, though, what happens to Splyce when the map completely opens up? It's fairly easy to paint by numbers when the lanes are set up for themselves. It's pretty straightforward, but I have to go back to SKT's experience for how experienced this roster is, that when these towers drop down, that they're going to set up and start looking for picks and start accelerating this game when they're strong.
Maybe some disrespect from Faker there. I mean, he does have the flash available, would have been able to flash over the wall, could have potentially got himself to safety, however, will pick up some plates.
Here we go, knock up again, and this time he does burn the flash, and that was a nice tempo. Northscare puts the hook, expecting for when the lane might be taken. Faker holds the nerve, gets over the wall, and now the Drake being taken pretty early on looks to be not contested. SKT will grab the first neutral objective, second neutral objective of the game.
And reminder, we just came off of a split map. We assumed that Splyce would be able to convert and taking down the tower. There's a single plate left on it that they would potentially get the Drake and trade it for the Herald, but because of all the skirmishing and the fighting, Splyce actually don't pick up the objectives, and SKT have eaten every available objective on this map.
And I'm very interested to see now where Khan plays, because you do not want to move the Draven out of bottom lane at this stage of the game, and you probably want Faker on the same side of the map as Blue Buff, which is about to spawn. So that means Lucian is going to be in the longest lane available, which once again means Clid has to hover him. That also is just going to continue to allow this Splyce bottom lane to look to attack, look to take down this turret, and hopefully accumulate a little bit more gold.
I expect SKT can use the mid priority to rotate and contest bot lane, and at this point, all Khan needs to do is bounce between top and mid lane and kind of pick up free farm, while SKT figure out what their next plan of attack is going to be. I agree with you. It's probably going to be on the bottom side of the map, and you can see that both teams are just kind of setting up, looking at each other, getting ready. Who's going to pull the trigger first? Who's going to get caught out?
And of course, there's not a very strong map impetus right now. There's not really enough time to set up for plates anymore. The first turret gold's already gone. Herald's gone. Drake's 4 minutes away. So it's a self-created situation if something does happen right here. You can see Splice, the wards are coming down. They're trying to sweep things out. To their credit, those pushes have worked before. We'll see if they can get more kills onto this Kai'Sa. And
it is a situation where both teams feel okay kind of extending at least this bot lane phase, because you both want to funnel in more gold to get your 80 carries to kind of that big next break point. But at this point, Splice are going to just have a short breeze, push down this tower, and start moving Kabe around, which is why Norskeren and Xerxes are hovering behind him.
And this is going to be the turret taken down in the bottom side. One thing I want to call back to, a minute ago you talked about Lucian being in the long lane, Klid having to hover. I don't want to see Lucian shoving the minion wave and AFKing. Chachi absorbing farm under his turret is the best spot map he could possibly be. He's so far behind. You want Chachi to be forced to be up here to claim farm. I don't want to see Khan hard shoving.
And you're right, because it was 40 CS at 40, and now it's still 40 CS right now. In fact, it's actually closed slightly, and that is because of exactly this. Khan is just dumping all of his abilities, pushing out, trying to create pressure on the map, as opposed to denying farm.
But what is he pressuring?
I think he's actually just covering. He's shifting top and mid, and what I was actually expecting from SKT is that they prioritize taking their backs and getting their items rather than setting up a play. Because if you can move Faker out of this mid lane, Khan shoves top, he then covers mid lane for Faker, then you're just using the Lissandra ultimate to get a play elsewhere on the map, which they're hunting for now.
Yeah, and that's going to be a force flash out of Norskeren with the fact that 3 people could have been enough for a kill. Over goes the Lucian, pushes in mid, but Teddy's already going to claim it. It's not like the Lucian did anything onto that one, so I gotta shout out my boy Low Standards and say, hey, why not freeze top lane?
Yes, he could be denying the farm from the gangplank. I think it is, though, that SKT are looking for the play, but it hasn't come to realization yet.
That's fair.
And now I'll be really curious, because SKT are sitting in their 1-3-1. This is exactly where their comp wants to be at this stage of the map. However, I don't think they have the lane assignments they want. I think that Lissandra would really still want to be into the LeBlanc. And I think that with the amount of penetration that Humanoid currently has on this LeBlanc, there is genuine kill threat onto Khan, because there's also a level lead, level 11 right now. So I'll be interested to see how SKT try and regain control of the lane assignments that they've been given, and whether they do try and flip this map back.
Well, we go into the 16-minute mark, and we're only a 1,000 gold difference. I would say you come into this matchup, odds are you don't expect a game this close. This is, again, I'm going to bring it up a lot because it's such a big part of this game. Splice are going toe-to-toe with SKT when going toe-to-toe is not the expectation for this squad. Hex Flash over the wall. Norskeren lands the hook! They're going to land everything! And the shutdown gold goes to Kabe!
And not only does he land the hook on Lucian, but beautifully timed at the CC. Hits him with the knock-up, chains it with the silence. There was never going to be a moment that Khan could look for the flash out.
And this is what actually more action potentially in the mid lane, but this is what I meant. Those lane assignments were just bots from SKT. They grouped around mid to fish for the correct assignments, and they did not get it right. That means that Khan is now being denied even further farm. When he was generating such a good gold lead for himself, Humanoid's going to continue to accrue a lead for himself, and these kills going over to Kabe is the perfect person.
It's the fact that SKT haven't been able to weaponize the power and pressure that they could have had with Khan in that top lane, whereas Chachi has basically been using the Gangplank ultimate as cleanup on farm waves.
And this is normally the stage of the game where I start to get worried about Splice. This is where they start, making their mistakes. They have the 2 solo laners with so many isolated deaths throughout the entirety of Worlds. They don't have that experience of being able to gain good control over the map. However, this time around, that just certainly isn't the case. They've been playing around topside jungle. Hold the thought.
Oh, Chachi forced to jump away, and what's the out route now? Actually, with the Humanoid backing off, Klid's going to be fine.
Classic isolated deaths from Chachi.
Absolutely, but what I wanted to mention is they've been playing around this topside jungle, and they had vision in all of the areas before the ward expired to be able to make those plays. There was nothing that SKT could do because there wasn't a dragon on the map.
Oh, into the cocoon! What a prediction! Klid set that one up. Humanoid had cleanse, didn't cast it, didn't go back.
This is exactly Splice. They get to the mid game and suddenly it feels like the train is on the rails and just immediately gets derailed.
Yeah.
I was just a second too early, wasn't I?
We were talking about this matchup before we came on air, and you're like, the big thing to watch for is the Splice solo laners top the tournament in isolated deaths. Within 80 seconds, Chachi nearly gets one shot into Humanoid actually dying, isolated from the team.
And this is actually a symptom that Kelsey likes to point out about Splice's vision. Thank you, observers, because you see how dark that map is. And yes, SKT are doing a great job denying the vision, but Splice historically are also terrible at getting the vision placed out, which forces the face checks. They struggle in playing 1-3-1. They are much more comfortable in a 1-4 or 5v5 formation. And as pieces are kind of walking back to the rest of their team, that's when they get caught out.
But Frost, they had the vision. As that replay is happening, if they were just playing topside, they're fighting over an Air Drake. And Air Drake is slightly better than everyone at home would have expected. But it still isn't one of those objectives. And if you haven't got prior control over the area, you probably don't want to take a 5v5 team fight. I really do think that with the assignments they had, they could have been playing for tier 2 top. They could have been encroaching on that topside jungle, trying to get control over the Raptor camp, using Gragas's threat from that position to try and take mid lane. You don't have to walk into a part of the map that you don't own.
But taking stock of the state of the map right now and the state of items, this is where SKT, they're like right in their pocket right now. They're feeling really comfortable. Look at Lucian's items. Look at Lissandra's items. They are ready to go. And at this point, Splice actually just kind of need to get over this hump. Create unfair fights, create some picks, some hit and run League of Legends, but otherwise just slow down SKT when SKT are at their point of power.
Because whilst they do have the items to fight, with the exception of Faker, no one is really safe on the map right now for SKT either. They will all die instantly to a Blitz Hook follow-up from Kai'Sa, who is also crested the 2-item mark herself. So I think the Splice still are in a very good position there. Ease of execution that comes from their comp, I think, is a little bit higher. They have things like the Gragas engaged, and they might look for it now.
Looking for the flag, who not going to land just yet, and the Claw's now down for Baker. Hook's going to come into Northscar, and they're going to trade blows here. Into the front line, though, Khan putting a lot of damage in, forcing the flash out of Northscar. Oh, comes across! Big flash flay! That's one kill coming through. Faker's in the chase, they're going to find a second now as well. Splice running for the hills. The flash to follow. Xerxes barely lives.
Because Splice, it's about playing hit and run. Unfair fights. Hit the hook. Blow them up with a Blanc. Do not burn all of your cooldowns and run face first into SKT. They will destroy you.
And it's about fighting over areas you have control. You saw that SKT very happy to disappear into Fog of War, then re-engage on their turn, and they're still looking for it.
All right, 3 versus 5. A lot of damage towards Humanoid. Faker first to mark that one, and the jungler, you got to find him. He's nowhere nearby. Smite cannot possibly come through. The Smite is there for Klid, of course. SKT get a 2 for 0. SKT grab the Baron. SKT recall safely.
And it was just the most untimely, critical mistake for Splice. And against a team like SKT, you cannot make those errors. Dying in mid lane right in front of the Baron. It looked like Splice might have a window in this game. You're like, I didn't think it would be this close. And now suddenly the game has just been ripped away from Splice.
And you can see that that from Northscar is an overreach. There was a good control ward in that brush. They didn't have perfect vision on Faker. And everyone else is disappearing into Fog of War. A great timed counter-engage there from SKT. And that's what experience looks like. And this Lucian in the mid-game is still putting in work.
Yeah, didn't go for the sort of mid-game lane control, but put him in a team fight. He's putting in plenty of damage output there, so well done. A good stopwatch for effort. And this is part of what we just saw, is why we hear Splice called a late-game team so much. Because their first 15 minutes are great.
They have to play it. They have to play late game.
They played SKT and they play the LEC close, and then mid-game happens, and if you want to win a game, they got to take it to late game, because their mid-game, just sadly, it's not quite there. They're getting picked off, and SKT now have a lot of road to run with.
I do like Splice's formation here right now. They're like, we can't stop what's ever happening. They're going to run through all of our towers. So what they're trying to do in these side lanes is force up these waves to stall out SKT's Baron. They don't want SKT to break an inhib or break the base with this, which it's a very early Baron, so chances are that that will happen unless Splice just make a massive mistake and again run into them. But again, it's forcing SKT to respond to clean up these waves and not just get to play offensive with their Baron.
Because Splice's composition doesn't have the most practical wave clear. They've got some forced areas of wave clear, like a Gangplank ultimate and Humanoid putting his face in the middle of a team again. You know, both of those things will kill minions. But we've seen how dangerous that can be already this game.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a good call, being able to split up the map, make the area big again, and not run into what is currently a power spiking SK Telecom. And this is where SKT are really able to show how well they play. You can see right now that Khan is trying to time his minion wave with potentially the mid lane wave that you can see that Draven right now is going to go in and collect after a red buff. Faker is pushing on the weak side of the map, but has all of his tools like his teleport to be able to join a fight. And they're just trying to starve Splice out of any area of control. And
Splice were actually setting up a trap right there. Humanoid was doing his best to look delicious, see if they could create a pick with Norskeren, but excellent vision and scouting from SKT. This team is just so refined, so disciplined, so well practiced.
And slowly but surely, it is, of course, SKT taking more of the map. Faker in the 1v1 against Vizichachi gets to demolish. Autos a few more times, takes that one down. You can see, right, they got to about 18 minutes in, and then it just broke open.
Yeah, because you say slowly but surely, but it's only 23 minutes into the game, and they're knocking on the base.
Well, they're going to try for a play right now, up in the air. A lot of damage towards Xerxes. Has to have Kabe walk forward to take a little bit of that right there, as Humanoid can't snap back to find any damage. Bot lane's still going to be under pressure.
Absolutely, and they're going to once again resume this siege. You can see that SKT, whilst the Baron buff is still available for the next 20 seconds, very content at taking away all the outer structures. They've now got themselves a 6,000 gold lead at 24 minutes into the game, and whilst they're good at 2 items, no carries, you know, fall off after that point. If there's not going to be defensive itemization coming across, the Lucian, the Lissandra, the Draven, they're all still going to be doing a lot of damage.
And it's the fact that because Splice don't actually have a traditional tank, if SKT's composition is ever ahead of the clock, which they are.
Yep.
We just saw that Baron power play. You just illustrated the gold lead. There's always going to be kill pressure, and there's multiple damage threats on SKT's comp. They will always be relevant in these fights.
They're going to look to be relevant right inside of Splice's base before too terribly long. We can see if they want to wait 2 minutes till the Baron respawns, or they want to push a bit more earlier. No rapid fire cannons in the squad, so it's going to take a little bit of effort to knock these turrets down, but with the gold lead they've got, you never know. SKT might, just might, dive a tower. For now, they're going to steal a blue buff away, take out some of that Splice jungle, and we'll see where they set up next.
And I think that the goal right now for SKT is just to play away from Norskeren. We've seen every proactive play currently from Splice has pretty much been off the back of a hook. So they're playing on the flip side of the map. They're making sure that they have vision set up prior to going for any of these elongated sieges. And I think that as long as they continue to frustrate a young Splice lineup, this early game, where it was quite competitive, will start to seem like a very long time ago. And then it becomes thinking about, okay, how do we achieve that one team fight where maybe we can sneak our way back into the game?
And if you're Splice, your main goal is to just, first and foremost, clear out your jungle so you can get safely to your farm waves. We just saw Splice do it. They used their sweepers, but it is also, as Spawn's talking about, setting up these angles and these avenues attack of getting Blitzcrank underneath in Fog of War and trying to surprise them.
Still playing the vision setup right now. We've only got a minute now till Barons. That's going to be pretty obviously the play, and this is the Splice vision.
Who's going to walk around this corner?
There are no forward wards at all in this squad. They see what happened. That's not going to be too terrible. Claw over the wall, doesn't get attacked or anything, and once again, it is so much darkness. Clid puts Sweeper down, sees a ward, says, anyone here? No? Okay.
And once again, look how well SKT play towards the safe side of the map. However, Clid might be in a bit of danger.
Oh, danger to Norskeren, though. The cocoon over the wall lands. They hook him right back in, and it's time to knock down the mid inhibitor turret. Baron's not up. They crack the base anyway. This inhib is gone.
And I don't know what it is about SKT, because you can change out every single member, but they almost always have this core identity of SKT not only recognize exactly what they need to do, but exactly what you want to do to them. They find it, they figure it out, and they break it.
Almost nobody for Chachi. Gets some damage, but not enough for the kill. Now the ult across from Faker. That could be enough to kill him. Heals a little bit more, but doesn't have the backup. Teddy finds that kill, and there's nowhere for Xerxes to go. He's going to drop as well. There could be more of a chase down. Faker just lives. The flash hook's not going to land. A trade kill. That's a nice one. The cleanse. He tries to get away, just back to the squad. And can he evade SKT? Which one's real? It's one on the north side. Puts in the chain. Everyone's going to bring in a teammate, though, and they're going to find the pull. Teddy on a killing spree, and SKT can run right to that Baron.
And once again, Splice go fishing, but this time they catch the entirety of the SKT lineup. They run over the top of them. They will be able to pick up their second Baron of the game, and the gold lead has just exploded.
And for me, the difference has not only been in the individual mechanics, but also just in the vision game that SKT have been playing since the lane phase broke. You can see that Splice are trying their hardest to regain control of their jungle, but SKT saw this coming from a mile away. This is after Norskeren's already been blown up, and SKT knew the Blitzcrank was around the corner. They drop a ward, they blow him up, and then they just start ripping through Splice.
And I mean, when you look at how this fight is going, it's perfect for SKT because it's on multiple flanks. It's the ability to not have to fight in something like a Gangplank ultimate. And credit to Humanoid, he is able to pick up Faker on the back end of that. Does allow himself to pick up a pretty big shutdown as well. But when your front door is being kicked in and you lose Baron, the game is in a very dangerous state.
I mean, Humanoid with that breaking ankles play right there might have actually just saved the game from Splice, but I won't say save. I will say
Prolonged
the game for Splice.
Maybe so, but regardless, it was still a fight that went SKT's way. The Baron's on top as well, and we'll see how much more they can crack down. Middle inhibitor already dead. Chachi found out by Khan. That matchup was tilted so early, and it's still paying dividends now. The fight on the bottom side. TP comes in, looking to knock down Teddy. Can they kill him? Yes, they will. A 1-for-0, but can it be enough? Can Kabe survive with the damage across? They're still chasing down the opponents. Another kill comes in. The culling is there. Just barely can't kill the Kaisa, but a 2v4 is really hard to win. Zer's going to flash away to safety now as well. SKT still on the chase. Faker has a claw soon, and they're hungry for blood, looking to go right through the mid lane, looking again to maybe knock down Kabe. Can't quite find him just yet, but they have the Nexus turrets in sight. 4v2 to push, and SKT, it's still gonna be a sub 30-minute win. The first 15 were fought valiantly, but SKT, the champions of Korea for a reason, pad the KDAs, add to the stats, 14-7 in kills, and the Nexus falls in game 1.
And a commanding victory from SK Telecom in the end, but that was a fairly competitive early game, but crucial errors from a young lineup again. Humanoid getting caught out multiple times, Norscarin getting caught out, and you just cannot make those mistakes against SKT when the game is in the crunch.
And I think the expectation for this series is it wasn't for lack of trying from Splice.
Yeah.
You know, they were throwing their shots at SKT. They tried to force a lot of ganks. Sometimes it did work out for them, but